Parshas Vayeshev. Dreams. Yosef dreams at the beginning of the Parsha, the stars, another dream, the sheaves, they're all bowing down to him. A pretty clear allusion to his brothers bowing down to him. It gets him into trouble. And the beginning of next week's Parsha of Miketz, we have Prero dreaming. And those dreams actually get Yosef out of trouble. And at the end of this Parsha, we have the dream of the butler and the dream of the baker. Paro's butler, Paro's baker. They're in prison with Yosef, or Yosef is in prison with them. And one day they wake up and they look distraught. Yosef says, "Why the long face?" So they said, "We both had a dream on the same night, and there's nobody to interpret them." Yosef said, "Well, God can. Why don't you tell me your dreams?" So the butler tells Yosef his dream. And he says, "There was a vine in front of me. On the vine were 3 branches. It had barely budded when out came its blossoms, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Paro's cup was in my hand. I took the grapes, pressed them into Paro's cup, and placed the cup in Paro's hand." We'll get to the interpretation in a minute. Then the baker speaks. The baker says, "Also, similarly, there were 3 open work baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket were all kinds of food for Paro that a baker prepares. And the birds were eating out of the basket above my head." Now Yosef interprets the first dream favorably. He says, the 3 vines are 3 days. In another 3 days, you're going to be restored to your previous position. Paro's going to pardon you, and you're going to reassume your position as sommelier. You're the chief butler of Paro. And then the baker, who has a very similar dream, Yosef tells him he's going to be killed. He's going to be executed. Why the different interpretations? Well, the most obvious answer is that Yosef Hatzadik has a direct communication with God, and as he says, God has the answers. He's inspired by God. We're not sure exactly how it works, but somehow he gets the message, the inspiration, and he basically says what God tells him to say. Rav Ahron Soloveichik suggests that if we look at the actual descriptions of the dreams, we might see some support in the dreams themselves for the interpretation that Yosef gives. In one dream, you have somebody who's looking to do good for someone. The picture is a nice one. It's blossoming, ripening fruit from a vine. And then you see the butler is taking that material, that fruit, and squeezing it, turning it into wine, or at least grape juice, I don't know, and offering it to Paro. He's being considerate. You might say he's doing his job, but this is a dream. He's being considerate of Paro. What is the baker's dream? The baker's dream is, why is everybody always picking on me? The baker's dream is that he's got his products, all kinds of products, balanced on his head, and along come the birds, and they're picking at his head. He's a victim. Or as Rav Ahron Soloveichik said, he suffers from a severe persecution complex. People who feel that they're victims tend to be angry. They tend to feel that other people deserve the same punishment that they conjure up for themselves as having. Now, Rav Ahron observes that there are basically 3 types of dreams. There's the universal dream, which is that everybody has, and he cites Freud. Everybody has desires or fears that they carry with them all the time, usually in their subconscious, and they don't think about them necessarily explicitly, but those fears and desires kind of bubble over at night in this amazing capacity of our minds to basically fantasize. These are all fantasies. Gemara Brachos talks a lot about dreams. Talks about the specific significance of certain images, but also talks about how people dream about what they think about during the day and how dreams are affected by the interpretation that we give them. Now, there are other dreams as well. Those are the universal fear and desire motivated dreams or fueled dreams. Then there are escapist dreams that are dreams that people engage in just to get out of their suffering, the misery of their life. The principal character in The Death of a Salesman comes to mind. That may have been daydreams, but they're dreams nevertheless. And then there are the dreams of aspiration. Rav Ahron says that the dreams of Yosef at the beginning of the Parsha are the dreams of aspiration, of aspiring to greatness. And sometimes we have to distinguish between them. But when it comes to the butler, his basic preoccupation appears to be giving. And if a person gives, he tends to be favorably received by people around him. A generous person is generally considered to be a good guy. Is favorably regarded. A person who is always a victim, or who considers himself to be always a victim, is generally not pleasant to be around. And if Prero is going to make a decision, Rav Ahron says even more than that. Rav Ahron says that people who indulge in this victimhood frequently tend to be criminals. And if they're not actual criminals, they carry with them much of the antisocial attitudes that criminals frequently have. We know that Chazal say, Ezehu Asher Samech B'chelko. Who is the truly wealthy person? It's the one who is happy with what he has, who is satisfied with what he has. Rav Ahron distinguishes between Gashmius and Ruchnius when it comes to this attitude. He says it's important to be satisfied with what we have when it comes to material pursuits. And it's reflective of a fundamental aspect of human nature, which is that the more we feed the beast, the more the beast wants. A person doesn't die having fulfilled half of his desire. Person has 100, he wants 200. If we're on acquisition mode, there is no end to acquiring. There is no end to getting more. Which means that we may be, even if you can afford it, but you may be on a never-ending quest to acquire more. And that doesn't last. The satisfaction, there's a spike in satisfaction. There's a book by Barry Schwartz. It's called The Paradox of Choice, Why More is Less. And in the book, Schwartz demonstrates, on the basis of research, that material acquisitions do give us a spike in happiness, but that, depending on the magnitude and the type of material possession that we acquire, that spike diminishes after some period of time. Could be 2 weeks, could be 2 months, etc. There's another type of aspiration and ambition, which Rav Ahron characterizes as healthy, and that is in Ruchnius, in spiritual matters. He says in spiritual matters we can never be satisfied with what we have. Because if we're satisfied with what we have, we lose a sense of growth. We lose a sense of meaning. And so for spiritual matters, we aspire to more. We aspire to some measure of greatness. And that's the dream of Yosef. The dream of Yosef is it is a reflection of some measure of dissatisfaction. We don't see that in the psukim, but in the paradigm. And it's a dream of accomplishing, not a dream of victimhood, not even a dream necessarily of generosity, but a dream of growth and a dream of aspiration and a dream of achieving things that were previously unachieved and perhaps considered to be unachievable. But when somebody has a dream and they set out to achieve it, that's the first step. Have the vision. The Maccabim at the time of Hanukkah, of the Chashmonaim, they had the dream. They had the vision. And because of it, they won. It's in our genes. Have a good Shabbos.